Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Inboxes only.
Good evening. My name is Yvonne Lawson from the Godwin Lawson Foundation. How did the foundation start up? 10 years ago, I sadly lost my son Godwin through knife crime. As a result of that, we set up Godwin Lawson Foundation. The purpose of that foundation is to help young people to reach their fullest potential. It's a pleasure to be collaborating with this foundation, which is Rehab to Life Foundation today. It's a delight for us to sponsor the foundation today. As you probably all know, there is a strong correlation between drug, alcohol, and gang affiliation. So it's a pleasure for us to affiliate with Tamara's Foundation today because there is a strong correlation. And hopefully, once we affiliate ourselves together, we will be able to intervene in those young people's lives at a much more earlier stage. On that note, I would like to introduce a phenomenal person who has lived an experience that's beyond words. I can't really put into words his tenacity and persistence is really beyond comprehensible. He is a great testament to us all. His name is Tamara Gabriel, and he's the author and founder of From Rehab to Life Foundation. This event is also sponsored by Flying Squad and, as I said, Godwin Lawson Foundation.
Thank you, Yvonne, and it's a privilege and a pleasure and an honor to be working with you. Although we haven't done any work together for a while, but we're working now together. And I'm just grateful to God because we're going in the same direction, and by the grace of the Most High, I'm looking forward to achieve great things, a lot of healing in our community.
Absolutely.
You know, bring back the love and unity in our community, the self-respect and the self-dignity, you know, and you know, that self-esteem, let it rise and shine. You know, we're beautiful people, and we need to express that beautiful behavior. And the only way we express beauty is through love. You know, and as Marvin Gaye said in his song, love is not the answer. I mean, war is not the answer, because only love can conquer hate. And, you know, I'm grateful to the Most High today for every breath to be here. And I'm thankful for all the panel review here, and for our drummer Omawale over there, and everyone else is coming on. We've got great saxophonists coming on later, but I'd just like to say this. You know, this is about love. This book came into manifestation by the love of our Creator, by the love of God. And this book is about bringing back the love into our lives. You know, this book is here to encourage others to leave the negative and embrace the love, you know, the positive, and grow, you know. And this is also a fact that I must say, you know, without love, we have depression. Without love, we have war. You know, the lack of love brings us anger. The lack of love creates dysfunctional families. The lack of love causes a lot of terrible abuse in all different walks of society. The lack of love, you know, causes racism. The lack of love, you know, causes a lack of peace in our lives, and contentment, and direction, and growth, and development, full joy. So therefore, this is all about love, brothers and sisters. Remember the George Floyd affair? That is through the lack of love. You know, the coronavirus is a way to point us back to the love. You know, when we're on lockdown, it was a way to let us wake up to the love within and start to love ourselves and love our families, like a lot of people have been doing. So let's continue down that road, because I'm looking forward to strengthening families and strengthening communities with Yvonne, you know, with the Godwin Lawson Foundation. God bless you all, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you all have to say or what you have to ask.
Marvelous. The power of love. Power of love. Power of love. Moving on swiftly to our review panel tonight, I would like to welcome you all to this evening program. Our first panelist, Sister Kandaki, who is a holistic health consultant. Sister Kandaki. Sister Kandaki on? Okay. Hello, Sister Kandaki.
Greetings, my sister. And greetings, my brother Tamare. Okay, so what can I say? First of all, I have to say that when I first got the book, like many people, although it's COVID, it's just been so busy. And I wondered whether I would actually get time to read it, you know? And when I picked it up and really opened it and began to read it, I couldn't put it down, my brother. So that's the first thing I want to say. It's such a powerful book. And just in terms of the overview, and I know you've got other panelists that will speak to it, but just to see the journey that you've been on, and that you're sitting here this evening to share. And so many of us don't do that. We don't get to see the inside the inside out. And I think even all what's happening today, I think it is a wake-up call that when you're healing, there's an old Ethiopian proverb that if you don't open up your wound to the sun, you can't heal. And my brother, it's like you opened up everything. And I want to say thank you for doing that, because it makes all of us see a part of ourselves, even though we didn't go through that same scenario. It allows you to see the rawness and how events in life, especially in the younger lives, around family, around parenting, how deeply wounding it can be. And then it can jettison our children into places where it just spoke so many volumes. So although it was your story, there was just so much to it. So yeah, that's the first thing I want to say in terms of my overview. I have no idea how long I'm going to be on. So yeah.
Brilliant.
So I read it from beginning to end. Yeah, and I don't read like stories like this. I'm a sciencey person, I read more facts, but which is this facts actually. And yeah, it was very powerful.
Very powerful.
So like I said, I'm not sure, how long or what you actually want me to say, because there's so many specifics I could ask, but yeah.
Well, I guess we'll come back around. Let's hear from everybody, and then you can come back in. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you again. Actually, absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you
for having me as a part.
Thank you, Sister Kandaki. Your overview, phenomenal. Because I felt the same. I hardly ever read real stories, but when I got the book, I couldn't put the book down. I would go to bed with it. I would wake up with it. And I think it kind of challenged me about my parenting skills, and also the impact of things the trauma that it can have on our children, the long-term trauma, especially if our parenting skills are very, very weak. It can have a long-lasting trauma on our children. So it kind of did challenge me, and I kept thinking about Brother Tamara, Tamra. Sorry, how he managed to survive. All and the fact that he's here with us is such a testament to us all. So amazing. Thank you for that. Our next panelist, Brother Clive, who's founder of Real Active Structured Supported Solutions. Brother Clive, are you there?
Yeah, good evening, Brother Tamra, my sister Yvonne. Yeah, and the panelists. Obviously, I'm honored to share this occasion with yourselves. I was running late, but I'm fortunate, obviously, because yourselves are running late. And yeah, I just rushed back with Omawa Ali, rather, from Hyde Park. Yeah, we was down there drumming and connecting with our ancestors and calming measures,
Wonderful.
Wonderful, well done.
But yeah, what can I say? I'm fortunate, particularly at this time, to have my path having crossed with my brother Tamra. And that was the doing of my brother Dougie, 40 years. He had brought us together. And even in his passing, it's been like a crossroad. I'm wondering, where is it that we're going, or what is it that we're having to do? And it then happens that, I think the baton has no doubt been passed on. But where I pick up on is the timing, the whole timing insofar as rehab, or from rehab to life. And given what was happening within our community immediately, and I think I made the comment too, Tamra, that from rehab to life, that is a situation that, we're definitely being put in a situation. So I put a twist on it, and I said, well, it looks as though we're now going through that transition from life into rehab. So for that reason, and with the launch, I was obviously fascinated, given what was on the front page. What was the content within this book? I was truly fascinated. I haven't read a book in a long time, but because I'd committed myself, I was to go in. And I then set about reading it. And when I started reading it, yeah, I was entrenched and taken in. And yeah, it is a book worth reading. But again, for where we're at presently, I would leave more comments as the evening unfold. But and I think it's part of the thing what Ivan had said, as a foster carer, because I've been a foster carer for over 15 years, and it's good to have an insight as to the trials and tribulations that would befall somebody who is one, because what you get out of this book is it represents an angle from being privileged and to a certain extent being embroiled in society or a jet set life, which at one point I'm wondering if I was to give some account, am I glamorizing? But I think overall it shows the strength and the character of Tamra in that he's journeyed and he's come out. And he's using that life experience to try and prevent others from opening this door, which is going to lead you down this slippery slope. So I'm, in a sense, keen to understand what others who have been into the book, what it is that they drew from it, and what it is that further my brother would like to let us kind of get a further insight as to that strength, because we know the power of love, but certainly within that there was a lack of love at some point. And love is the thing that has ultimately pulled him up. But again, there must have been other supports. I mean, I know we touch on the spiritual and the mindset and things like that, but for now I'm anxious to share our own overview on what's been written and why is we are encourage you out there, the public, to read this book and to make use of the journey and the experience that my brother brings to the table. So I thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to my fellow colleagues' comments.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Brother Clive. Very open feedback. Our next panelist is our community activist, Brother Gabriel. Is it Walete?
Walete Gabriel.
Yeah, Walete Gabriel.
Yeah, greetings to each and everyone. Greetings, Tamara Gabriel. And
Greetings,
it's
Sister Walete Gabriel.
Oh, Sister Walete Gabriel.
Yeah, Walete Gabriel. It's okay. You don't need to say Sister. Walete Gabriel is good because Walete
My
means
sister.
Walete means daughter. So what you're saying is sister daughter. So
Okay.
you know it's okay.
Gabriel.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not gonna be
Okay.
split ears over that one. However, yeah, I have to say that yes, Tamara, give thanks. Give thanks to the Holy Spirit. That gives life.
Yeah.
For you being here. Because I've heard what the previous panelists have said, and um, I don't want to reiterate, or I try not to, but I agree with them entirely in terms of those perceptions or those feelings that's picked up from the book. Because for me, when you brought the book to me last week, and I looked at it, remember I said, oh, I was hoping it was not going to be more than 200 and odd pages long, because I'm kind of working out how long it's going to take me to read it, for today. But nonetheless, my daughter knew I had the book, and she said, have you started reading the book yet? Have you started reading the book yet? And eventually I picked up the book on, I think it was about Monday or Tuesday. And like everyone else, once I picked the book up, I couldn't put it down. I mean, the first chapter just got me because it's a mirror image of what a lot of individuals who came over from the Caribbean went through. Because I straight away I started talking to my daughter and saying to her, "Look, imagine that. You know, it's just a mirror image, because when you're in the Caribbean, you're better off than when you come to England, because you had a maid, and when you come here now, you become the maid, you know. So I kind of can empathize. I could empathize with some of that, but the thing that really got me was your resilience. You know what I mean? Being able to bounce back. You know what I mean? To bring you to the point where you are today. You know, and again, I have to say, give thanks for that. You know, um, and. Whilst I was reading it, you know, I just kept on thinking, really, what drove you? You know, what drove you, and you know, and how did you survive? Because you went through so much, you
Mm,
know, so much, and you know, it kind of, you know, you just went through so much, because the type of work I do, you know, some of those, you hear some of those stories, you know what I mean, and it's very, you know, some people do survive and, you know,
mm,
and come out of it, you know, and I can't put a figure on it, you know what I mean, but there's the others who kind of fall off the wagon, so to speak, you know what I mean. You know, so I think I can't even find words to describe, you know, to describe it. But all I can say is that, you know, give thanks that you're here, you survive, and that the foundation, along with our sister Goodwin's foundation, you know, I do pray that this will make a difference, you know, to a lot of young people out there, you know, or even older, you know, whatever age they are, that's going through these difficult times, to know that they can come out of it, you know what I
mm,
mean. And once coming out of it, right, is to find the find the thing that keeps you um at peace with yourself, you know what I
mm,
mean, whatever it is that keeps you at peace with with yourself. And like you say, and it's a great cliche of mine, love conquers all things, you know. Love love has to conquer us, I always say, not us conquer love. Love has to conquer us. So it's like you're consumed by love. It's like you'll be in a bubble, and that bubble is just, inside of it, it's just love, you know what I mean? So that when you permit and meet anything, it'll be the light of love that goes away
mm.
from you. So Tamra, give thanks for inviting me on the panel, you know, and I'll wait to see what transpire, what other, you know, what other questions, you know, come forward from this.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it was really a life story, you know what I mean? It was really a life story. It was real, you know. I didn't need to go to a cinema to to watch. I could visualize, you know, what you went through, you know. So you know, so give thanks for having me on the panel.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure and an honor, Walete. And an answer to your what you just said there. How did I survive as a child? You know, the domestic violence that I suffered, and the domestic drudgery I had to go as a slave suddenly from a,
Mm,
you know, how I survived all these years of daily savage beatings and
mm,
being deprived of play like other children, you know, and
mm,
so forth. Whether it was sunny and a bright, beautiful day like today, how I survived basically was that I accepted my situation. I
mm,
didn't like it. I wasn't enjoying it. I was bewildered. I wondered, are these really my parents? You know, I'm on the right planet, you know, and but I loved them. I still loved them, and I kept forgiving them in my heart and in
mm,
my mind, and lived for the day, hoping that one day they'll say, hug me and say, "Well done, son. Oh,
mm,
you've done very well in school." Because I was a brilliant academic in school. You
mm,
know, everyone had high hopes for me, except my parents.
Ah,
mm,
See,
mm,
and this is what happened. I didn't have their support, and life suddenly, as a child, I saw my release date as being, well, when I go to university, I'll be free. Just
mm,
like every day when I went to school, it helped to keep me sane, helped
mm,
to keep that balance. Because going back home was a dark cloud. Going to school, the sun was shining.
mm,
Regardless of all the races that were on the road waiting to ambush me or whatever, I had to look out for them as well. But
mm,
it was only through love and forgiveness towards my parents, and acceptance of my situation that helped me to survive by God's grace. Because there were times when I thought I was a dead boy, you know, because the sort of things I had to go through, those brutal beatings, was no joke. Thank God I'm here today, and from what I'm hearing, we're going to be helping others to stay clear from that road, or parents to stop behaving themselves, and so on, and for children to just, well, you know, just learn to accept life on life's terms, and to wait and be patient until the time comes when they're free to move on. But just like coronavirus, we all had to accept it until it's time to move on, and we move on. You know, whether it's because the years come that I got to the age of 16, and so therefore I was thrown out the house. So that was my break in life. But unfortunately, I descended into violence and crime and so on, and it goes on, as you are well aware. Yeah, I haven't read the book. But thank you for that, Woleti.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Bless you.
God bless you. Very touching feedback, Sister Wality. Phenomenal. Just I just can't imagine our brother Tamara, because every time I look in his eyes, I just keep asking myself questions as to where did he got, you know, where did he got the strength from, and how did he manage to, sort of the same questions that you are asking, how did he survive this? And as parents, how could we actually help each other and support each other? And maybe parents that sort of abuse their children, is it because they don't know any better, or is it because their parents abuse them and they just think that's the best way to bring up their children? Who knows? So the question just goes on and on. Touchy. Right. Our next panelist, moving on swiftly, is Sister Rosemary. Sister Rosemary, you there? Sister Rosemary? Is Sister Rosemary there? No? No, she isn't. Okay. She's not. Okay. Right, okay.
Okay. Isn't it, what about right? So Sister Rosemary isn't
Sister
there.
Rosemary is not there.
Okay. Well.
Okay.
Well, I mean, personally, I can read an extract from this book here, and I'll just open it up, and on page 98.
I've got mine in my bag.
Excuse me, I put my glasses on page 98. I'm just going spontaneously with the Spirit within, the Holy Spirit. After a while, I felt as if all the anger and frustration my stepchildren felt towards their mom was being redirected at me as I made good target practice. Michelle must have been relieved to have me in the line of fire, taking much of the heat away from her. Maybe that's why she never asserted herself. Being in love with me would have helped. Yes, well, that bit there reminds me basically of the fact that when one becomes a drug addict, a crackhead, and an alcoholic, and snorts cocaine and all that sort of thing, one becomes fragmented from within. My mind was fragmented. The fact that I dressed well and had money in my pocket and so on, and people thought I was doing fine, but inside I was fragmented. I was empty. I was in pain. You know, I was in torture. I was in a torturous situation, spiritually, mentally, and physically. However, being in that state actually caused me to marry a woman who wasn't in love with me. You know, because my decisions were fragmented. Everything was fragmented. You know, everything was overshadowed by depression, by anger, you know, by guilt, by shame, by remorse, resentments, impatience, intolerance, dishonesty. And so I made the dishonest decision to marry Michelle. God bless her. She couldn't help it, but that's what happened. And having made that decision, I got myself further entrenched into depression that became chronic, as the doctor described it, because of that marriage. And I suffered that marriage for 4.5 years because I was determined to raise my children. I was determined to stick with them. I had twins in that marriage. In fact, I went to leave the marriage on the day I got married because I realized I'd made a mistake. But I kept quiet for a month, or was it 2? And then I said, well, this is not going to work out. I cannot live with someone who is in love with another man. And so when I went to say, darling, I'm leaving you tomorrow, she spoke first and said she's pregnant. And I felt compelled to stay. And I stood my ground for as long as I could. But when you have hostile stepchildren, it's not easy when they're teenagers at that. And I had no choice but to leave because their mother and the children that she had at the time, it was them against me, or me and them. And it was hell, actually. It was hell. Every day. It reminded me of when I was a child. I used to go back to that house. It's supposed to be a marital home. And the depression would come over me. A dark cloud would come over. It reminded me of the days when I used to go home from school to my home, you know, where I lived with my parents. You know, I'd get all depressed and get fearful and anxious. What next? What am I going to walk into now? But thank God I didn't make the right decision by actually taking drugs and alcohol to anesthetize myself against my dire situations, that painful situation, even a shameful situation, because I felt ashamed of being married to someone who didn't love me, and to live a lie. And it wasn't the answer. Anesthetizing with drugs and alcohol wasn't the answer, and violence wasn't the answer either, because it got me to the point, a boiling point, where I was so frustrated and angry, I'd boil over. And the fact of the matter was that I was violent to my wife on one occasion, actually, and which I deeply regret, but that was fueled by drugs and alcohol, which that's no excuse. And for me, it was better to leave the home than to be in a home raising children in conditions that are hostile to their development, that are negatively affecting their growth, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Yes, but drugs and alcohol always lead us to wreck and ruin and unhappiness. It solves nothing whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I'd be quite happy to know that alcohol is illegal, because it's the worst drug of all. It's the worst drug of all, and it's legal. Because alcohol, it attacks every organ in the body, whereas other drugs, they focus on certain areas in the body. But anyway, I'd like to hear from Sister and Kandaki, actually, because I'm sure you had more to say.
Yes, greeting, my brother. I'm just mindful, as I think Dr. I can't remember his last name. He's here as well, so I didn't know if he was going to get everybody.
Yes,
Yeah, he
yes,
was going to
that's
get
right.
everybody
As a
through
matter of
first.
fact,
Yeah.
I beg your pardon. You see, I remember now, Dr. Davidson was supposed to come in the break.
Yeah.
You
After,
know,
yeah.
he's
After the
supposed to
break.
come in the
Yeah.
break during the break period. To do the live review. But yeah, well, while you're on here, if you got something to say, then we'll go to Dr. Davis.
Yeah.
It's just that the time has been cut short because of certain delays and so on to do with the equipment.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were just
Yes, sis.
speaking just now. Yes, my brother. When you were speaking just now, and I guess it's part of the work that I do. And when you see individuals come and they've come from all walks of life and have had all quite kinds of experiences in life, and it just highlights that as human beings, how powerful emotions shape our lives, and the ability to be able to manage our emotion is a huge. It's like you've got this stallion, this wild stallion, you're sitting on it and it bucks, and you've got to try somehow to control it. That's what the emotions are. Because just now when I hear you speak, it's about drinking to anesthetize how you're feeling, taking the drugs to anesthetize all of these different emotions that you speak to. And so it just shows how much that controls the human being. And again, I go back to, as a child, when you do not have the tools to be able to kind of work this out. You said, are these my parents? Because you're trying to figure out, you're in life and you're trying to figure out what's going on. I know I'm supposed to be protected by these people. I'm sure that, I'm certainly not putting all the blame on the parents, because once you get to a certain age, you have to take responsibility for your actions. So there is also that as well. But it's just the power of emotions, what we will do to stop ourselves from feeling the hurt, even if it means ruining ourselves. It's a challenging one. It's a challenging one. And I think even where the world is now, people can't manage their emotions. That's a huge one, and the different things that people do, whether it be how they feel about another set of people, and so how they act that out, or how they feel about themselves. It's a conundrum that as human beings, we really have to get a grip on, so that we can become better human beings and so that we can elevate ourselves. So again, I also want to say as well, from what I saw in the book of you, my brother, is that you have a brilliance with you. Even the fact that you were able to make and I know it was amidst all the madness and all the drug taking and everything, but your ability to be able to make the kinds of finances, and this is without glorifying, it's just looking at it without any emotions. The ability to make the kind of money you were making means that you had the ability of an entrepreneur or a great businessman, and obviously you still had the love for music. So it just shows you the skills that this human being had. But then, because of the turmoil of how he felt emotionally, he had another thing going on in his life. So there was great wealth, but there was great emotional turmoil going on. So you see this struggle between these two things till you get to the stage, quite later on in the book, when you go through the 12 steps in the Alcohol Anonymous, when you actually realize, well, because you have the struggle with, someone gives you this deal, says you can have this deal, but if you go down that road, the drugs and alcohol can step back in, and to be able to say, well, I don't need that kind of wealth. But you follow the journey of having to every day, you know, be watching yourself and challenging yourself, and to be saying no every day. Again, the kind of strength that it takes. And I mean, as human beings, really, we do want to be watching ourselves, speaking to Dan, a word that came through was that our bodies are the greatest temple. It's the greatest temple than any church, any synagogue, any mosque. The body, because it houses the divine. So, yeah, and that comes from a Voodoo queen. Actually, it's from her temples that she gave those words. So it's true, we the body houses, the divinity, a part of the divinity, and we learn from each other's experiences. So again, I want to say thank you for opening to the world and sharing your life story.
Thank you, sister. And I have to say that feelings, you spoke on something. Their feelings. Every addict and every alcoholic drinks and takes drugs on their feelings. That's a fact. In fact, we were running away from our feelings, running away from our emotions. And we could trace it back to childhood when we were at home, when we fell down. We weren't allowed to cry, and when we felt sick, well, in my case, I wasn't allowed to say, Mom, I'm feeling sick, or Dad, I'm feeling sick, because I felt unloved and felt, oh, come on, shut up, just get on with it. Just put your clothes on and go to school, and all that sort of thing. You're all right. Until there was an occasion when the teacher noticed me in school and said, are you all right? And I said, no, I'm not feeling too well. And they sent me down to the sick bay, and the woman was so shocked. She said that after taking my temperature, get the ambulance here immediately. This boy is frying. He's frying. And she said, I'm on the point of death on the temperature, just wavering on the cusp of death, Yes, and so, things like that through not being able to express my feelings because I was fearful of my father. Talk about I was always a good boy. I couldn't be a bad boy at home. The other children telling mommy, no, I'm not doing this, or no, daddy, and all that, and stamp my feet and run out into the garden and all that. I had to ask for permission to even go into the garden. We had a park. At the edge of our garden, you opened the gate and you stepped into the park. You didn't even have to cross the road. Could I get into that park? Every time I got into that park, it was like I was just released from prison, for a few hours. And that's the way it was, not being able to show your feelings. And it just accumulates over the years till you come to it and you have a first drink, you think, that sort of relaxes, makes you feel a bit more relaxed, and all that sort of thing, and off you go. That's how it is, and next thing you know, you're hooked. So that's not the way to go about it. We have to talk about our feelings. If I couldn't talk to my parents, I should have talked to my grandma, but then I couldn't even see her that often because I had so much work to do at home and so forth, and schoolwork and stuff like that. I just didn't have anyone to talk to, basically. All my grandma said, tell the police, call the police, but I wasn't keen on doing that either. So I just suffered in silence, and that silence, became like a void within. And eventually, when I did, escape my domestic environment, I was an expert at hiding my feelings, so to speak. So I went into the world hiding my feelings. So in other words, I wasn't being myself. And we're all here to be ourselves, to be our true self. When we're not our true self, when we're not our true being, we become discontented, we become depressed, we become angry, and all sorts of things, brothers and sisters. So please, parents out there, please allow your children to grow nurture them. Yes, guide them in the right way, but let them express themselves. You know, talk about our feelings. You know, not like, "Hello, how you? Are you all right? Yeah, I'm all right," and that's it. No, say,
Yeah.
"No, I've got an itch here. I've got a headache. I've got a, you know," and so on. We must feel free to talk. You know,
Yeah.
talking heals. You know,
Yeah.
talking is a healing thing, and we have to be honest with ourselves. You know, honesty. We really have to be honest, because being unable to express my feelings or tell you about my true feelings meant that I was being dishonest. You know, and that's no solution. Therefore, I suffered from that dishonesty. And it's only through honesty I managed to arise above, you know, the guilt and the shame, the drug addiction, the alcoholism, and the violence and crime. I had to get honest with myself. I had to get humble with myself. And I had to ask God for forgiveness and to forgive myself. And in fact, I remember when I went through the 12 steps, there came a point making amends with all the people I had harmed and so forth. I wrote a letter to my father, because I questioned the fact, why should I be writing a letter to my father? He was the one who did all the damage. I never did him nothing. I always did as I was told. And but I still wrote my father a letter, because my sponsor told me, when in my early days of sobriety, he said, "Well, your behavior after you left home wasn't that bright, going into crime and so on." So I wrote my father a letter and I said, "Please forgive me for all the wrong things I've done that brought shame, or in your life and so forth. Knowing that your son is going around robbing people, robbing places, and being violent on people and so on and stuff like that. And please forgive me for my behavior in that way." I did. And also it helped to cleanse my soul.
Yeah.
It helped to cleanse my soul. And the fact of the matter was, I got a phone call from his wife, who said to me, "Didn't you know your father passed away 2 years ago?" I thought, what? And that's the consequences of drug and alcohol addiction. I became estranged from my family, so they didn't tell me about anything. Some of them didn't even know where I was, but anyway, they could have found me, but no one did. I had hit rock bottom where I was estranged from my family, from myself, from God, from my friends, from society. And so really I didn't know what was going on. But, God bless his soul, my father. I love him, and I'm glad to say that I visited him while he was alive. And for the first time, he did show me love. And I thank God for that. And that's the memory I'll hold dear in my heart. But feelings is very important. We need to be honest and express our feelings. And I look forward to talking to Brother Keith, as he rather me call him.
Yeah. Okay. Very emotional. Oh dear. Emotions are just running. We just thank God for your life, Brother Tamra. We just thank God that you're here with us. I think the power of talk is just so important. I think I was brought up in Ghana. And I remember sort of when my son died, men are not supposed to cry. So my husband would just sit next to me and the family would just say, "You can't cry because men are not supposed to cry." So I think these things just stems back sometimes to our culture and where we come from and what we believe in. But the power, and I think with our children, we just need to give them that space for them to talk about how they feel, their emotions, and sometimes give them that words, the vocabulary, how are you, to describe how they're feeling, and then give them that time as well to describe that, how they're feeling, and talk through how they're feeling, because that emotion doesn't go away, it stays with you. And as you get older, it can either turn into anger, that you kind of express that anger, that emotion towards somebody else, or you keep it inside of you. And when it's inside of you, that's when you decide to turn it, to drugs and alcohol, because everything is bottled up and you feel that's the only comfort that you have. So, brothers and sisters, just give ourselves, and I think adults as well, we need time. Sometimes I feel like I just want to talk. I just want somebody to listen, not just children. I think adults need to find time to listen to ourselves as well.
Indeed.
Well, moving on swiftly, I'd like to introduce our Life Link review with Dr. Keith Davidson. Dr. Keith Davidson.
Yeah.
Davidson.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Hello, Dr.
All right.
We can hear you.
You can hear me. Oh, let me say
I can hear you.
Can you hear me still?
Can we hear you?
Yes, I can hear you
Okay,
clearly.
good. Clearly good. Let me say thanks so much for being part of this program. It's a privilege to be asked to take part and to listen to so many wonderful things being said um, here tonight. Uh, what can I say? It's just wonderful. Getting to know Brother Tara's story, reading the book, etc. It's only a few weeks since we met through church, and so I'm blessed because of his life story. So what I want to say, because I think he wants me to say something that might go beyond this interview. So I would say that his story is one that is enthralling and gripping in so many ways. It will leave those who will read this book further, from those of us who have read it already, it will leave us spellbound. And the title, From Rehab to Life, is so powerful. It's almost like saying from death to life. It challenges us in so many ways. It is inspiring in terms of Tamara's personal painful struggle in life after arriving in England from the island of Dominica. It's also about the importance of resilience, and someone used that word earlier on. So it's about resilience and the power, I think, of faith. He has a strong belief in God, which came out in all this, all the pages almost. This power and this faith in God. I learned from his work that it is a piece of work that is designed to encourage and to empower, especially young people, to be purposeful in their lives. It seems to me that he passionately wants others to learn from his many mistakes in life. Far from glorifying the ruinous things in his life, such as drugs and crime and spells in prison, he instead strongly promotes the divine power of God who can change lives. For me, being a believer in the Creator, that came home very strongly to me. It is something that especially our young people need to have today. That link, that connection with the Creator. And so this book provides experiences around that. He strongly promotes, as I said, the divine power of God who can change lives. I therefore want to commend those who will be listening to me to see great value in this work as a tool for motivating young people to avoid the many pitfalls that they will encounter in life today. So it's a delight to have read this story. It's wonderful to know the person in flesh, And it's great to associate with so many of you here tonight. I'm here. You can ask me questions as you go along. I'll try to be here for the next 45 or so minutes if given time. I should have been away for another what is called a Zoom meeting, but I'll be late for that. So, Brother Tamra, thanks so much for having me as part of your program tonight. And I'm still learning about what you have contributed to life, because it's a contribution. Your story is a contribution to life, and we applaud that.
Thank you, Dr. Keith Davidson. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Brother Keith.
Yes,
Thank
Brother Keith. By the way, I see Brother Amawali. Is he still with us? The
Yeah,
drummer?
I'm here. I'm here.
Yes, long time I haven't seen you, my brother.
I remember the great works that you were doing at the African Run School here in the Tottenham area.
In North London, yes.
Yes, yes, and I'm in admiration of your work and that of Dr. Alexis also.
Yes. And you know, we've written a couple books. I don't know if you have. If not, I can arrange for you to have a copy each at some point in time. But good to see you on the drum.
Yes, thank you very much. And coming from an elder of your stature, it really is an honor. Let me also say that I've written a few books,
magnificent.
and we will share. We'll exchange books. I've written a few as well.
Okay, great. Back to Tamara and
yes, Brother Keith. Thank you so much for what you said there, Brother Keith. It's you're spot on. This book was divinely directed and guided. You know, when I started to write this book, it was supposed to be a short bio for an album that I'd produced entitled From Rehab to Life as well. And that album's supposed to be released in conjunction with the book. However, that's another story. But when I started to write that short bio, which is supposed to take me half an hour, you know, or so, I wrote for the next 7 months, every night from about 1, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning till about midday or 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
For 7 months straight. And in fact, there was 50, 60 chapters, but during the proofreading, you know, we had it cut down to about 50%. So half of the book, the other half is still yet to be told.
That's the second edition to come.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But by God's grace, I feel it in the depths of my soul that I have a message to carry to the youths out there and to the elders out there, to everyone out there. Everyone needs to be aware not only of where drugs and alcohol leads us to, or where violence and crime leads us to, but where just being dishonest and immoral leads us to. Where our behaviors are, we think we're sinless, and yet we are damaging our children. And we think that we're doing the best thing in life. So I hope it helps to enlighten people to be honest with themselves as parents and to shake it up, because our children are suffering out there. They're murdering each other out there, and parents and so on, and the public, they're blaming it on the government. They're blaming it on 400 years of slavery. They're blaming it. Look, all these things play a part, but I know that charity begins at home, and we have to take responsibility. And I hope this will encourage parents to take responsibility, as well as children to take responsibility of getting honest with their parents, and vice versa, actually.
As I was saying about the title, which I found very stimulating, From Rehab to Life, and as I said, it's more like saying from death to life. The truth of the old matter is that all of us are dead. but for the grace of the greater.
Absolutely.
All of us are dead, but for
Absolutely.
his grace and his mercy.
Yes,
I hope that at the church, at some point in time when the lockdown is over and we can reconvene, that you can have an audience with the congregation there
I'd be honored.
about the book, and I believe we can organize that when things are back to things won't be back to normal as we have known normal as it is, but when we're back from the lockdown, I think we ought to organize something for the message to get out to the wider congregation there.
I'd be honored. God bless you, Dr. Keith. Brother Keith.
Brother Keith, yes.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yes, but I'd like to say another thing about death, because you're right. We're all like, without God in our lives, we're just walking dead, and
Yes,
the
yeah.
fact is, and the alcohol and the drugs, just takes us to hell. We're just walking dead. We're numbed from the pain, from emotional pain, but then we're just a dead person, because only dead people don't feel, and we're running away from our feelings. So it's a death wish on ourselves, to abuse ourselves with drugs and alcohol, which is the ultimate consequence of addiction, is death. And thank God I survived to tell the tale, because I was looking at the grave, to be honest with you. Yes,
Yeah.
I was. But thank God I managed to rise from that dire and destructive place, by getting on my knees and asking God for help. And here I am today. The honesty continues, and the love of God and love of self and the love of my brothers and sisters continues. The love of my family. It's all work in progress. I've learned that there's no graduation in spirituality. And I thank NA and AA and the rehab that I went to, St. Luke's and St. Augustine, for introducing me to the 12 steps. Which God is the ultimate authority, and it's only God Almighty, our Creator, who restores us to sanity. Because I was insane. Because when you're not in touch with your feelings, of course, you're in the realms of insanity, and repeating the same behavior every day and expecting a different result. Oh, we'll have a big drink up today and a big drug up today, and tomorrow everything will be all right. We'll wake up and everything will be beautiful. We'll wake up out of this nightmare into the dreamland, into heaven. And it never, ever, ever happened. That's what you call delusional, that's denial, and dishonest, dishonesty to myself and to others. And thank you again, Brother Keith. Thank you. God bless you. I look forward to meeting you in the church and to see what we can do together.
Yes, I'm sure we can do many more things set around the book here. It's a very good tool for working with our community. And God bless you.
And bless you too.
For your forthrightness and so forth.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Keith.
Yeah.
God bless you and family. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Lots of love.
Right,
Same here, my brother.
We've got a short break coming on. Please stay tuned. Keep the conversation going. I'm so intrigued. I'm looking forward to more. Stay tuned.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Tamara Gabriel. And did you know this is Drug and Alcohol Addiction Awareness Week? And this is my book, From Rehab to Life, sponsored by From Rehab to Life Foundation. Steering our communities away from drug and alcohol addiction, violence, and crime. With all proceeds going to our charity, From Rehab to Life Foundation.org. a charity for
I
non-profit.
could
I'm
see you
just trying
getting.
to keep myself.
Restoring sanity in our community. Bless it.
Oh, really? Oh dear, sorry, we need a bit more. Hold on a second. Yeah. He moved it. I thought it was a break. He moved it. Sorry. Sorry. Have you got it? No. I've got my data on, haven't I? Just got this phone.
I'm not very good with the phones.
Okay, hold on.
But
You got it?
if it came through, it should have your number because you have been
Okay,
in my
hold on
address
a
book. See,
minute.
I haven't got it yet.
Okay, hold on a second. Where is it? It hasn't come through. Are you able to read it from my?
It's too small. I can't
Okay.
read that. It's just too small.
Or do I have to store your number? I think I probably have to store your number on my.
You can send it to me as a text if you want.
Okay, hold on a minute.
That should be able to go
Okay,
straight
that should
through.
be able to come through. Hold on a minute. Forward. Okay. Oh, you put your number on.
Okay. Hold on, I've got it. Come on. I just have to do it again.
Yes. And I think there's a lesson there for us all. You know, you start off innocently, and all of a sudden stealing apples, you know, and thinking, well, you're not committing an offense, but we didn't ask permission. And so we were being dishonest. And that dishonesty led to stealing chocolate bars. And from chocolate bars led to stealing other things, which we ended up behind prison bars. And it goes to the stories there for the parents too. Stop taking things from children without knowing where they come from. Like, for instance, as a responsible parent would say, well, look, listen, my son, bring back those apples to Mr. So-and-so's house, because we don't take stolen goods in our house. We don't harbor stolen goods here. We're not going to eat stolen apples. And that way, the child grows with a sense of respect of self and others, grows with a spirit of honesty in him or her. Little simple things like that can change the whole course of a child's life, even of an adult's life, actually. Yes, dishonesty does not pay at the end of the day. Never had and never will. And so, while we're still waiting, I shall go into another poem. And this poem is entitled Ereline. Now, Ereline is was my sweetheart, my first sweetheart when I was about 6 years of age, just before I left to come to England. And she was my cousin, and I loved her. And this one is entitled Ereline. So here's to you, Ereline. Ereline. Ereline was my best friend, my cousin and girlfriend. I never ever had to pretend. We lived close together by the sea on a beach called Lago. Oh, I love the beauty of her mind and skin and her spirit deep within. That's my Ereline, childhood sweetheart and darling. So when I had to leave, I was sorely grieved as I held her hands that night under stars and full moonlight. Although I was just a child, I felt like a man inside. I touched her intimately, enthralled by her beauty, knowing I'd soon be missing our touching, cuddling, and kissing. Although we were just children, we knew we were more than just friends, and that loving feeling would never end. Now here I am, here just like this, wondering as I'm thinking, Ereline, 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 will I ever see you again, Ereline? As the sounds of the waves that gently kiss the shore, with that sinking feeling, knowing I'd be seeing her no more. With that sinking feeling, knowing I'd be seeing her no more. That's Ereline, my childhood sweetheart. And I shall now recite another poem. And this poem is entitled The Last Days. I don't remember the full poem, so I'll just recite the first verse. And it goes like this. The last days, in the last days, men will be bragging and boasting of his ways. In the last days, man, in a violent haze, with a thrill to kill, and dishonesty a thing to fulfill, by all those in a haze. In the last days, man in a violent and immoral phase, saying crime and cruelty pays. In the last days. I don't remember any more than that on that one. But I'll say something which I do remember fully. And this one is called depression. Depression. When depression came, I didn't see. The past in my life had caught up with me. The violent abuse I suffered as a child, my uni education that had been denied, so many things I'd suppressed inside, with nowhere to run and nowhere to hide, in a pitch black tunnel with no light in sight. Depression came like a thief in the night. Don't know if it came from the left or the right, but in denial I put up a fight with drug and alcohol abuse to make things right. My appetite for business and money was gone. Life became void of fun. A good woman was needed, but I couldn't find none. My chances were 1,000,000,000,000 to 1. Alcohol and cocaine, they were the enemy and not my friends. But way back then, I didn't comprehend, as they anesthetized the pain, anger, and torment, to forget the years of betrayal from family and friends. Massive burglaries I suffered again and again. Men and women who came for financial gain, feeling like an outcast with 1,000,000 friends. Committing murder appeared to be justified after the way that I'd been crucified. But somehow God kept me off that path, because only God could abate my wrath. Because only God could abate my wrath. Well, I'd love to hear from, thank God, everything is now moving along. And I hope someone got something out of the poems that I just recited. Brother Keith, I just saw your face. Okay.
So we've got a review from our brother. Get the name right. Brother Omawali Rubert.
Yes, okay, thank you. Let me just say that the
Pardon? Oh, I have to. Hold on, tell him.
yes, well, let me say that the review didn't come through as expected, so I'm not in a position to relay the review of our brother at the moment. But I mean, just to comment. I haven't had the good fortune of reading your book yet. I'm sure I will read it in the not too distant future.
Yes.
But it's clear to me that you have gone through significant traumas in your childhood, and in fact it continued into adulthood. Can you tell me how long were you affected with drug addiction? How long were you affected? Just roughly.
Well, it was at least 20 odd years. It's been a long time. Yeah, 20 odd years, brother. Absolutely.
And alcohol?
And alcohol, well, that was even longer, actually, because that was the first drug really one picked up, you know, and one didn't realize when our parents used to give us these little shorts of whiskey with a treetop orange juice that dilute to taste, and mix it with that, and you'd have one sip of that, and you know, and from there you think, oh, this is all right, you know, it's got that sweet treetop orange taste with the whiskey, and off you go. And from there, and as I'm talking, I remember there were children in my school. I remember this boy, he used to have miniatures on him every day when he came to school. He had a bottle of miniature bottle of whiskey. I know now that was he was an alcoholic already. As a little child, he was already addicted to alcohol. And, you know, but yes, I found that basically, you know, that was my first drug from there, and then that just opened the doors to all the rest that came along.
I mean, I'm asking you these questions for a reason.
Yes.
Let me ask you another question, having not read the book. Has gambling ever played a part in your life?
No, gambling never played a part in my life. Never, ever. I won on a gambling table when I was maybe about 10, 11. In fact, it was at Hackney Town Hall, actually, and I was walking past the town hall as a child and saw all this action going on, and I thought, let me go and see what's happening inside. And the whole town hall inside was turned into a casino for that day. And I remember gravitating towards the roulette wheel, which is something we played on in games and these little game things at home. So I thought, oh, let me try my luck on roulette. And I put my shilling or whatever it was on 13 black. And 13 black came up, and my shilling turned into pounds. And I walked away from the roulette table and went straight home. Yes, and I didn't tell my parents about that because I probably would have got a beating for going into a gambling scenario. And, well, the fact was that they never used to give me my money, so I thought I'll keep that one for myself. But yes, so I haven't had no other forms of addiction that I can think of apart from, well, I'm addicted to music, I'm addicted to songwriting, I'm addicted to writing, I'm addicted to, poetry, that sort of thing. I'm addicted to nature, if you like to put it that way, to the mountains and the hills and the seas and all that. Oh, that life I had in Dominica as a child, that's what kept me going much of the time. I'd just return to that beach where I lived, or return to the foot of the mountain where I lived, or return to that river where I lived, or to that tree where I lived, or return to that great big moon that hung in the sky, as if I could touch it from the top of a tree, as written in the book there. These memories kept me going, by God's grace. They really did. And all the time there was that spirituality that my grandma, Mammy, she introduced me to as a child, very strong in spirituality. That was the basic foundation that held me up, through these terrible trials and tribulations that I had as a child. And as an adult too, actually. Yeah.
I'm going to make just some factual comments now. And I'm just going to ask you if you'll comment on those facts. Yeah. There's a man called William Wilberforce.
Yes.
He's very famous. All of us have heard of him.
I heard of him, yeah.
William Wilberforce snorted cocaine for 40 years, every day for 40 years.
Yes.
Yeah. William Wilberforce was an alcoholic.
Yes.
Yeah. William Wilberforce was a gambler, and he only got away with it because he was actually so wealthy. Yeah. William Wilberforce is painted as a saint. I get the impression that you are not painted as a saint. I'll read the book when I get the chance. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you just comment on that irony?
Yes. Well, it's very simple, really. The fact is that had I not run out of money, so to speak, after 20 odd years, of blowing all my money away, had I not run out of money and descended into crime and, to get crack and alcohol, maybe I might have escaped, and people would have thought, well, he's still got his flat, and, and he's still got, his clothes, and he's still got all the accessories, his cars and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But, my other take on that is the fact that you have a thing called functioning addicts. You have people who can take cocaine and drink alcohol, abusively, and yet hold on to their jobs, and you have people they have the first drink or that first line of coke or that first puff of crack. That's it. They can't move. They're not going anywhere. You could have, they're not going anywhere, nowhere whatsoever, until they've satisfied that craving for crack, until they've numbed that pain, until they feel more secure in themselves, or so they believe. You know? Yes. So, you know, a man like Mr. Wilberforce, for example, you know, he simply represented a thing which we knew as a he was part of the Champagne Club, you know, and you know, and he took the champagne drug, you know, and cocaine was glamorized in the newspaper. I remember reading it as a child. They talk about the stars, you know, taking their champagne drug of choice, and think, wow, champagne is related to success, to happiness, to bubbly feelings, and lovely. I drank champagne. Yes, I drank it with cognac, and took the cocaine and smoked the crack and all the rest of it. You know, champagne, I know now, is just alcohol. You know, it's just how could you say, packaged differently to, you know. And in fact, all drugs are glamorized. All alcohol is glamorized, even beer, even that horrible thing called Tennent's that I said I'd never drink, and I drank when I got to such a low rock bottom that anything, you know, I was ready to drink any alcohol. I remember I descended so low. If a man left his drink there on the table and I didn't have any money and so on, and he'd left it and walked away, I'll just pick up his drink and drink it. I didn't even think about the consequences, that maybe that man may have had AIDS, or may have some sort of disease that I could have caught from drinking out of the rest of the alcohol from his glass. These are the depths that addiction took me. It took me to places where I'd be dressed up in a Savile Row suit with crocodile shoes, and all the money in my pocket is to go to get that crack over there and get some alcohol. And I may have even more money than that to cover more than that. But what happened is that once a slave to alcohol and drugs, I started to pick up dog ends on the ground, you know. Yes. And I said, I could never do something like that, you know. And this is what being a slave to drugs and alcohol does to you, or can do to you. You know, although at the same time, I knew what I was doing, so I'd break them up and put them in a tobacco pouch. So you know, so then that would sort of make it look like as though I bought myself some rolling tobacco, so no one would know that really I'm smoking dog ends. You know, you just learn to try that. You keep covering things up and keep covering things up, and that's the absence of God in my life, because from drugs and alcohol became my God instead of God our Creator. I was doomed. I was doomed. I was doomed. And it's only when I cried to God for help in Wandsworth prison, I began to rise again, brother. It's as simple as that.
Right. Amazing. I mean, I've got a question to ask, in terms of...
Before you ask the question, can I just say, Brother Tamara, that I have to leave you now.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother Keith.
But we'll be in touch, and we'll talk further.
Absolutely.
Just going to catch the tail end of another meeting.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Sorry again, my apology.
Apologies accepted.
And love to everyone. Love to everyone.
Thank you.
Love to you. Blessed love. And thank you for your invaluable contribution this evening. God bless you.
God bless you.
I'm more honored that I'm thankful to you. Yes. God bless.
God bless.
God bless you. Thanks for your time.
I'm humbled.
And again, it's perhaps, you know, we should just take into consideration that there are other people there. Sister Willetta may want to come in and say something before she goes to her meeting.
So should we put questions to the panel? Anybody, if anybody has got any question to ask, because we're conscious of time. questions to the panel. If anybody's got any question to ask our brother Tamra, because we're conscious of time.
Heard? Hello?
Did you hear me?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, Brother Clive.
Yes, brother. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've been out here listening and hearing poems, and yeah, obviously again I haven't read the book, and I've been I'm wondering, like, if insofar as the journey, it would appear that your journey has been a privileged journey, because again, after what my brother Amawali had said, it would appear it's only at the point when you were in the gutters, that's effectively all your resources, all your money had gone, that you then realize, not by choice, because there is something within you. I mean, I've been listening. It's very much a testimony, and from your testimony, I'm gathering that it should be something that should prevent. So overall, I mean, from your journey, what is it that you're trying to enlighten us with? You're saying that despite all the privileges in money, cars, all those luxuries that you've enjoyed, that at the end of it all, your spirituality and that sense of belonging that is generated from love, is that what you're saying? That is the most important thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. Money, I know for a fact, is not the answer to happiness. I've had more money than many people in my life, and I was astounded when I says, how comes I'm not happy? You know, how comes I'm not happy? I remember the days when I lived in a bedsit, you know, and with my girlfriend, and we'd have spaghetti bolognese and a little bottle of Mateus Rossi and a candle light, and then we were so happy. And now I'm in a mansion, and I got all this money and this and that and blah blah blah, and traveling around first class and this and that, and I was full of pain, aching,
Okay.
and crying with pain inside. You know, so I know money doesn't buy happiness, and I know that it doesn't buy love, because I threw a lot of money in my marriage. You know, and it didn't make my wife love me, didn't make her children love me either, who I regard as my stepchildren, you know. Yes, and funny enough, we get on a lot better today than we did all those years ago. The wife who I divorced, she passed away from drug and alcohol addiction, actually, and she was a teetotaler when I met her. But that's straying away from what you were just talking about. Yes, I just found that, yes, you know, money doesn't buy happiness, and all the trappings of wealth, you know, doesn't make you happy. I know lots of people living in mansions and so on, and they're miserable in one room, you know, and some of them are dirty and ragged. As when you think, my God, you're in a 10 million pound house and you're living like a tramp in there, you know. But like Brother Omawali said, you know, as long as you got money, you know, it creates that illusion that everything is all right, until they find you hanging from the stairs or something like that, which billionaires hang themselves, multi-millionaires hang themselves, millionaires hang themselves, and so on and so forth. And the drugs don't work either, and alcohol doesn't work either, because, you know, although it numbed the pain for a while, but the pain is still there every time the drugs wear off and the alcohol wears off. You got to go back for some more quick, because I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to say there, because ultimately, again, that void, that love is not there.
Absolutely, the lack of love.
I'd like to say also is there is a take on the parenting, the effective parenting skills that your parents then would have had, our impact on your life, and also how your dependency on these drugs affected your own children's life. Yeah. So it takes us back round to where we are presently, and that's dealing with effective parent. So what I've taken away from having read the book is the experience that you have projected, what you've gone through and you've projected in this book can be used as a tool, particularly for us who are parents, because I don't think it is the case for youngsters, because once you get entrapped, the only thing that's going to stop you is if you run out of money, if you haven't got the means, or your circumstance, so that's the environment to which you're in, is changed so that you can be deprived, which effectively is like you being in rehab. Yeah. But what I'm leaning towards is the fact that we need to be effective as parents, and that's what fascinated me, because I mean, I've not been an addict. I've not had to go into rehab. I'm at an age where I don't believe that's going to happen, even though, you know, we've had relationship which is somewhat stressful. But
let me say this.
hold my hand.
I know a man who went into rehab at the age of 70.
Wow.
So be careful, you know, be careful.
Okay. Well, I'm going to use your book as a tool.
Yes. No, I'm 75, not 70. And I thought, what? I couldn't believe it. You know, he started late. He started in his 60s.
No, well, I think what it is, I think he's given up on love.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm taking it again, obviously, on a serious note, that the book is to strengthen us.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to appeal to the youngster below the age of, say, 16, even though some of us are exposed in the climate that we're presently in. So I think it's going to aid us, because to a certain extent, as Brother Omawali picked up on, everything was hunky-dory and fine to the point where you lose the means. So you was now desperate, and it was humiliating to the point that when you was confined, as we are now in lockdown, in rehab, when you was confined, it was like that Mandela moment, and you was able to connect, because you was now gonna come out of jail, which effectively was rehab, and go back into this new world. And that's why I drew in that kind of scenario, or tweak on the whole situation, that we're now coming out of this lockdown. So the government has put us into rehab, and we've now got to find our way out. And the interesting thing is, they want to give us drugs in order to say that is now going to be the solution. You know, so that's how they're playing on our psyche, which is ultimately what the drug does. But I still have to commend you, having read it, for one who has climbed out of that precipice and has been open to share your testimony. And that deals again with the effective parenting as to the importance of your spiritual rites of passage, your social rights, because you did not, to a certain extent, had that social, economical skill to manage. Money could buy everything. And when you run out of the money, you suddenly realize is that there's no life. You know, so I salute you for having presented this to me. I mean, in the last 3-4 months, I think, well, it's longer than that, 6 months now or so, I've had to read your book, I mean, with Yvonne, from the Godwin Lawson Foundation. I had to read her book, and the book grabbed me the same way, to a certain extent, as to how the learning, or this way the Godwin Lawson's training program is structured. I wanted the book from the beginning. It wasn't given. but I went through the process of actually reading it to better understand. So that's what I enjoyed in reading the book, that I was able to better understand what it is like to have gone through that transition, yeah, into rehab and back out of rehab into life. Yeah. So that's what I would like to share with those who have not yet read the book, that we can use this book as a reflection as to our present circumstances that the government has put us into, which is rehab, and to be strengthened, yeah, in facing this new world, yeah, and knowing that love and your spirituality as to the strength that it affords us to escape from any abuse. Even though, again, I would say with your parents, what parents do, because they're old fashioned, they tend to apply the whip the same way as the slave master. So I don't know if they were preparing us for the transition of leaving the West Indies to coming into Western society where the slave master was. Yeah, because it's a transition from the physical into the mental. Living in Babylon is a mental situation. When we're home in Africa, that's where the slavery is being meted at. Yeah. So yeah, I would say be encouraged, and thank you for your contribution and for putting pen to paper in bringing in us into your previous world, and may you be strengthened to hold the path, and to enable us to reflect and gain from your what do you say, your trials and tribulation. Yeah. So my respect to you.
Thank you, brother. God bless you. Enough respect to you also.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Our panelists?
Okay. Can I just ask then, would you consider that there's any age limit on this book?
You're right in as much as that is for teenagers upwards. It's for teenagers upwards. You know,
yeah, be mindful. Some will see the glamour. They'll hear the champagne. They'll hear the fast car.
Yes. Well, the thing is, I kept that low key. I didn't really. I could have done a all action packed glamour book, but I didn't go down that route. However, I couldn't escape it. It was like when I was in rehab, I didn't want to tell people that, you know, I would have, a pot this big, you know what I mean, full of cocaine, you know, for myself, because something like that is a lot of money. You know, you're talking about going to buy a house with that, put the money deposit on a house with that much cocaine as your own personal use. So I didn't really want to say these things. And I remember my counselor said to me, look, from it's true, write it down. Yeah, from it's true, write it down. You know, but really I shied away from a lot of stuff. There are a lot of things I could have mentioned in there. So I just sort of skimmed across that, you know, a few bits and pieces, but nothing I thought would sort of take over the book and make it become something that's glamorized. Because in my book, I clearly say when I went into prison, I thought my friends were mad. They all glorified prison, saying, oh, they had such a good time in there and all this and that. But I'm saying to everyone out there that prison is not a good place. It's hell. It's hell. How can you enjoy yourself being locked up? You know, and it's worse than lockdown because you don't have a key to your room. You know what I mean? And you don't have the comforts of home. You know, you even have to, well, back in the day, you didn't have to ask to go to the toilet. You know, everything you got to ask to permission to do this, permission to write a letter, permission to this and permission to that. You know, prison is hell. You know, so we know that the children today are insane, because now we've reached the stage in society, in our community, where the children regard getting a big sentence, the bigger sentence is the bigger cred they'll have in the community.
Absolutely.
You know, they feel they'll be highly respected, and you know, and all the rest of it, and they'll be famous, and so on and so on and so forth, you know, on an ego trip. And in fact, the reality of the matter is that after a year or two, or how many, it sinks into those young men, and I'm sure that they see things a lot different. I'm sure that they're riddled with regret, shame, remorse, but that's their that's the consequences of the decision that they made. You know, and obviously we're going back to parenting, and obviously they think about their parents, because that's what you do when you're in prison. You look back on your childhood and you think, well, you know, mom and dad, and you know, and you think about your schooling, and you think about your friends, and you know, it's everything goes back into replay. You know, you're compelled to go within yourself, because there's no world out there to attract you. You know, you can't go into the world and be distracted by things. You know, so you know, rehab or prison, you know, compels us to go within ourselves. You know, start that inner journey, and of course, we have to be honest with ourselves, because many of us, when we go on that inner journey, we stop and say, "Now," you know, we go into denial. You know, we refuse to accept and refuse to admit, you know, the truth, and therefore compounding our illness instead of healing.
Can I ask? I think one of the viewers was saying, to a certain extent, which obviously is something I'd overlooked, what impact did your parents' failings as being effective parents have on yourself that would you say, shape your behavior to have taken you down into that precipice?
Oh yes, their effect was ginormous, ginormous. You know, the ginormous. In fact, you know, when you feel unloved as a child, it's the worst thing you could feel. You don't feel loved by your father. In fact, you're scared of him. You can't even talk to him. No conversation. And then, you know, you're also afraid of your mother, but in a different way. You're not as the same as your father, but you know, if you go, Mom, I'm not feeling well, you don't expect to get any cuddles, or you don't expect to, okay, well, oh, you got a temperature, I think you better stay home today. There was none of that. So therefore, you know, I felt like I was pursuing my mother's love. I felt I was pursuing my father's love, doing the best I could at school under the circumstances, and so, and doing all the housework, you know, making bottles for my little sister, baby sister Sandra, and changing her nappies and things like, at the age of 7, peeling potatoes, and started making meals for my siblings, and I was 7 myself, you know, and gutting fish and scaling fish, and seasoning it, and all these things, and oh, you know, the work just went on and on and on. And by the time I was 9, my mother said, now you're qualified to cook for your father. You know, after 2 years of, you know, yeah, now you can cook for your father, because he was a very fussy man. So the feeling of being totally unloved, always chasing after their love, which I could never get, and seeing my younger siblings who were born in this country getting that love, but I wasn't getting that love, it made it even worse. You know, he said, well, my God, let's just go back home with our grandma and our brother Glenn and our sister Brina. Let's get out of here. But obviously that never happened. And every day, as a child, I thought of running away from home. The thought, I had a craving for it. It was like a drug. Come on, let's go, let's run, let's escape. And But I never ran away because I thought, well, where am I going to run to? But later on in life, I ran to drugs and alcohol as an escape in life. You know.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine the only refuge then would have been social services.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Hello.
I think. But maybe there's others that would
Am
like
I
to
in the room?
points and asking any other questions.
Yeah, I've got a question. Oh, Supreme. Sorry.
Yes, brother Supreme.
Brother
Yeah, I'm just asking. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
I know there's a slight delay. I'm just asking. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, clearly.
Okay, I got to say good evening, greetings, and got to say thank you very much for inviting me to review your book, Tamra. I've got to say, you know, it was very interesting because I'm not a person who reads book. I'm more a person who's visual. And to be quite honest, reading the book, it started to become really visual. Some of your life and your lifestyle. But when I read, there was a page, I was reading chapter 14. In chapter 14, which you've titled Paranoia, Psychosis and Beyond, within 2 pages, you've had 3 to 4 relationships. And I'm thinking, but this guy's unstable in the book. He's dysfunctional. And he's doing so many things in a dark, seedy world. How is he out of this? And in the book, we see your adversity, we see your journey, we see your turning point, you know, and it's very interesting because when I see you in public, you just seem so quiet. And I spoke to you the other day, you told me that you wrote the book in 7 months. I thought, I said, wow, that is an achievement in itself. But at the same time, I thought, has he written this book because it's a healing process? Has he written this book because it's for him? And these are the questions that I wanted to ask you, because looking in the book, it was almost like you're like a black James Bond in the underworld, doing all these drugs, women, you know. And I said to myself, would I pick this book up if I was in W.H. Smith's or, you know, if I didn't know you? But I know if this was a film, I would watch it.
Yes.
And it's very interesting when we look at people's lifestyle, and we want to do a thing what I call voyeurism. We look at other people's life, but you've put something that's quite interesting, and I don't know if this is a bio, if this is a bio, because you're still living and you're still in your turning point. And
Autobiography.
come out the other end.
Autobiography.
Auto.
Yeah, we're an autobiography here.
And I've got to say something for my good friend, Brother Dougie. He used to say to you when you was on his radio show, Tamra, your mess has become your message.
Yeah.
That's what he used to say.
Absolutely.
And when I used to listen to your show, you've got a very deep, baritone, distinctive voice. And when I read the book, that's the voice I hear. Funny enough, you know. But yeah, can I know there's a slight delay, so I'm going to try and read it because chapter 14 was a chapter that kind of just popped out at me, and I said to myself, "What's going on with this man in this book?" And it's chapter 14, and I already read it out. It says paranoia, psychosis, and beyond. And this is the one that's really got me. I don't know why. And I'm just going to read 2 paragraphs. It says, back at the Docklands, I managed to get arrested back to the apartment after buying a bottle of cognac around 10 a.m. in the morning. What? To help me come down from the coke. I drank half the bottle before I returned to the block and ended up at the police station instead. I shouted abuse at the police, and the doctor who came to see me, and I was transferred to the psychiatric unit at the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel. I refused to stay there, and the police were called to escort me back to the police station, where I was charged for having counterfeit travelers checks in my possession. The charge was thrown out of court at my very first appearance. About this time, my relationship with her began to feel strained. I realized that she was someone to have a good time with, but not to live with. The pain of my descent, descent into darkness continued. But as I'm reading on, that's where I was reading. In those 2 pages, you've gone from one relationship to another. And it seems like the breathing space. I'll just read another bit to where I see another relationship come in. It's during that phase I met Jane from Holland Park. She drank copious amount of wine with me, and after weeks, she invited me to live with her. She was educated with a middle-class background, but had anger management issues. Is it?
Yeah.
Anger management and control issues. I agreed. I like this. I agreed to live with her as I thought I was able to run more than one home at a time. She became very upset. You know what? I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop, right?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I looked in this book and I thought, this man is in a relationship, but he's dysfunctional. You know, so I mean, when did you realize to yourself that you had to change? I know part of the book is dealing with the end part, and you titled, which is interesting, From Rehab to Life. So, are you saying that you wasn't in your life? Now you're in
Yes.
Tamra Gabriel.
Yes, brother. Now I'm a living man. Before I was a dead man walking. You know, I was committing suicide slowly. You know, I was taking the poison of drugs and taking the poison of alcohol into my system under the guise that that was the way that I could cope with my feelings and function in life and so forth and so forth. You know, and in fact, that wasn't the way to go about things. The fact of the matter is that I refused to ask for help, and that's what you do. When you refuse to ask for help, you run to get help from somewhere else. Oh, the bottle of cognac. It's not going to talk about me and, you know, and all that sort of thing. It's not going to say anything bad to me, and the cocaine isn't going to talk back to me and tell me I must behave myself and so on. But I'll tell you this though, I realized what I was doing consciously, I would say for about 20 years or so, really, when I was abusing myself with these drugs. I realized that I had to stop, but I was perplexed and baffled. How comes I can't stop? I need to stop, but I just couldn't stop. You know, when I gave up all my businesses and just would lock myself in a room and take in drugs and all that, and know, well, if you carry on like this, you're just spending your money without any money coming in, you're going to be broke one day, you know. But when you're an addict, a thought will come along and it'll say, oh, well, you know how to make lots of money. You know, you got all these connections, you know, so really and truly, don't worry about it. You know, we'll be broke. When you're broke, we'll just go back and make some more money quick time. But what happened was when I finally became financially ruined, I couldn't get it together to do any business because I needed to have alcohol in my system every hour, and I had to have the drugs as well. So, and for me to return to business, I had to sober up, and I was unable to do that. You know, I could only abstain for an hour or two, or it'll be a great achievement if I manage the day. You know what I'm saying, without anything to drink or any drugs to take in my system. And so therefore my life was dominated, and directed by drugs, and that's really, to be honest, at the end of the day, I have to say this, that experience taught me this, that we have to be honest with ourselves, and really and truly, at the end of the day, drugs and alcohol, although I tried to conquer it. My excuse was, that's another excuse I made. I tried to conquer it. I said, look, I'm not going to pack in taking this. These people, they're drinking and taking drugs and they're doing all right. I can do the same. But the fact of the matter was that, some people are functioning addicts and some people aren't. And I wasn't the functioning addict type. Also, the fact of the matter is as well, is that when in the enthrall, of drugs and alcohol, it's something which really and truly tells you all the things that you need to hear to carry on taking it. It never tells you to stop taking it. For example, insanity, the addiction is an insanity that always tells you that you're all right. You're all right. Even when you're in the gutter, like some of these people out there, homeless, on the streets there, in the thick of winter, the cold, and begging for money so they can get some more drugs and stuff. A lot of them still look down on people who are going to work and all that, and you know what I mean, and have their children. They looking down on them. This is what addiction does to you, because I have to feel something, like somebody. You know what I mean? So I said, look at these fools going to work. What idiots. Yeah, you need something to hold on to. Yes.
Tamra.
Yes.
Looking on the book, you've got 220 pages you've got 220 pages written with about 29 chapters. Yeah? Yeah. 29 chapters, 220 pages. Which one of those chapters really sticks out for you in this book? And there was another question I would ask you about, because I just related to a bit where you spoke about your daughter ringing you up to say, Dad, they've kicked in your door.
That was my girlfriend.
You carried on.
Girlfriend.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was your daughter. You said, I heard you on the radio say, my daughter Makeda rang me and said, Dad, your door's been kicked in. And you carried on doing the recording session in the studio that you was in. Yeah. And I thought, how could this man still continue functioning, knowing that he was being robbed? But yes, which chapter out of the 29 chapters you've written really sticks out for you?
Well, there's a chapter there, I believe it's is it Salvation Sounds? What chapter is that? I think it's chapter, let me have a look here. I'll soon tell you.
It's chapter 23.
Is it Salvation Sounds? Chapter 23.
Yeah, chapter 23.
Chapter 23. Oh, yes. Salvation Sounds. That's page 178. Funny enough, I've just come across another page here, which is chapter 17, but which something that sticks out for me. But we'll go to 23. Proceed along there. 22. Right, 23. Yeah.
And what you yeah.
Yes. Well, 23. No, it's not the one really that I would say. This is when I'd cleaned up and sobered up, which is good, which is good. But the one that I really jumped to mind was on chapter 17, where I asked God, why had He allowed me to get arrested again? How could my arrest be of How could my arrest be of any help to me? As I heard the crack pipe calling me from the 17th floor. That was the beginning of my recovery, but I didn't know it at the time. People saw me as the gangster who fell from grace, but I didn't consider myself a gangster. And yes, to be honest with you, these are all the consequences of me because I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm a poet. What am I doing going around,
Yeah.
and all that sort of thing, robbing people and all that sort of thing, and getting myself in trouble, really and truly. And this is what happens when we abandon our gifts, our natural, divinely gifts that are given to us, these gifts. And when we abandon them, this is what happens. We end up going astray because we're no longer ourselves. So I was separate from my true being, and there was only one way I could go, was to destruction, whether it was alcoholism, drug addiction, or robbing or stealing, or gambling, or whatever it was, or sex addiction, or whatever. But you just completely go a different way when you're not fulfilling our true divine purpose on here, which is the talents that we have. Whether you're a runner, go running. Whether you're a jumper, go jumping. You're a singer, go singing. You're a writer, go writing. Don't worry about whether there's money in it. But fulfill what is within you, and it will attract wealth to us. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I just thought I'd get that in quickly.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, reading the book really painted a picture for me, in the sense of you in chapter 10 spoke about you were living at number 1 Evering Road, which the Crays used to live in. When the landlord, was it the landlady that told you that the twins used to live there?
Yes. Well, she wasn't the landlady. She was a neighbor. And, she was an elderly lady. And she said, yes, the Craig twins owned that house once upon a time. And to be honest with you, I thought, well, maybe that's why, because I never felt comfortable in that house. Like it felt there was a creepiness about it. You know what I'm saying? Especially late at night. I got very sensitive to just the vibrations around me. I says, yes, that woman is right. This house definitely it was the house of the Cray twins, and the fact that I was going through so much trial and tribulation at the time, I thought to myself, well, no wonder why, I'm feeling like this. I'm in a house where the Cray twins used to live. God only knows what they committed in that house, because they were known as murderers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they used houses to murder people in, and stuff like that. And so therefore the vibrations from the house, I wasn't comfortable with it, which only drove me to take more crack and drink alcohol even more abusively than I was doing before. So yes. Yeah, indeed.
I gotta say, when you first told me you read the book, and I say this to everyone else, I said I went straight on Amazon and I purchased the book, and the book came within 2 days, and it came in a period where we were going through the frequency, and we still going this frequency of the coronavirus, and it's very interesting, that we're in a time now where people can actually sit read a book now. You know, read, you know. So I'm going to say to anyone who's watching the broadcast to go on Amazon and purchase a copy of Tamara Gabriel's book From Rehab to Now. And it's good to, you know, to support a brother in our community that, you know, we see your turning point and you've put, and this is what I'm raised about. You've done this in 7 months. So what was the writing process? What was the process that you kind of used? Did it every night, every day? Did you have a notebook, diary? What were you doing?
I work with spirit. I work with the God spirit within, with the higher self within, you know. And when it came to a certain time at night, my head and my heart would light up and say, "Come, let's go writing." And all I could see was writing. All I could feel was writing. I had to write. You know, it was like that had replaced the drug taking that I used to take, you know, because at that time of the night, I used to, you know, basically start abusing my body with coke and alcohol. But instead, now I found myself, you know, sort of really, how could you say, absolutely, what's that word? You know, that word, very, 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 very keen to just write. I had to write. I had to write. I couldn't stop writing. I just couldn't stop. My fingers would start hurting before I stopped writing, you know, and I knew that I had to write this book and that it was a book which is to help people. I knew that much, and I felt I was just working with the God within, basically. And after serving alcohol and drugs for so long, you know, I'd rather serve our Creator God and write a book, record some albums, write some poetry, you know, run a charity, serve. I'm here to serve, really. You know, although I founded a charity and, you know, I've produced a few albums and, you know, and I've written this book and so forth and stuff. But I'm just a servant. I'm just looking to just do good, as Brother Dougie would say. You know, I'm making amends. I'm making amends in my life. My life is a continual amending liberty that I'm living now. You know, towards my children as well, towards myself, towards you, Brother Supreme, and everyone here in the studio here, and everyone else on the panel there, and to all society, to my people, to the spirits of our ancestors, you know, to God, my Creator, you know, and so on, you know. I have to keep on making amends, and it's the best thing I could ever do because I feel comfortable in myself. You know, I'm no longer angry like I used to be. I'm no longer haunted or tormented like I used to be. I'm no longer dishonest like I used to be. I'm no longer violent like I used to be, you know. And it's a wonderful feeling.
I don't want to
like curtains open, but not closed. Yes, brother.
This is my last question, and I didn't want to take up too much time because I know we've got some other people on the panel. But when you wrote the book, what was the response from, let's say, the publisher?
Well,
what was the response from the people that? Hello?
Hello. Hello.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, Supreme, you have to repeat yourself.
Oh,
Repeat
no, I
it,
asked
please.
a last question.
Please repeat it, please.
Oh, okay. I asked the question on what when you finished doing the draft, what was the response from the first people who proofread it and the publisher?
Well, the response from the first man who proofread it, he told me it is a brilliant book. He says, this is very good. You know, he gave me a lot of praise, and and he's an author himself and a critic as well. And he really encouraged me to, to keep with it. By the time it got to the publishers, it had been proofread several times more, because he actually proofread it again after he returned it to me. He must have proofread it 2 or 3 times, and then it was proofread. Well, not actually proofread. I was working with some brothers, and actually, they actually lost some chapters and some part of my manuscript. And good thing I realized that that was the case. And because I wrote the book myself, when they gave it back to me, there were bits missing out of it. And so they helped me. But so I got all the bits back from the original, and they helped to just fill in those bits that were missing. But after that, when I joined with Austin Macaulay actually, Austin Macaulay, they offered me a deal. They offered me a deal straight away, basically, and I worked with them for over 2 years, amending the book backwards and forward, proofreading. There was 11 proofreadings sessions we went through 11 times. Send it to them, and the main thing and then they'd send it back, and then I'd find more stuff, I'd amend that and send it back, and that went backward and forward like that for 11 years. I'm not 11 years, for 2 years. And there was a point actually where I felt like giving up and just doing it on my own completely. And they encouraged me. They said to me they liked the book, and just take my time, don't worry, just do whatever I have to do. They're with me all the way, which they have been. And I'm grateful for that. They've been very encouraging, and they told me straight they liked the book and they'd like to work with me. And that was very encouraging.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of the panel. And I wish you all the best with the sales of the book. I know now that you are now officially an expert. so thanks anyway, Tamra.
Thank you, brother. God bless you. It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you, brother.
Wow, that was very insightful. I think we need to wrap up. Is there any more questions? I am conscious of time. I think we need to wrap up. I mean, it's been such an inspirational evening. I'm just so grateful honored to be here, and I'm just so grateful for your time. Thank you all to all the panelists. Your time, your feedback has been valuable. I've learned so much from that, and I think as a person, I'm going to leave this room and question myself, where does our joy and peace really lies? Does it lie in our physical world, or the things that we see, or does it really lie in our spirit being? I'm just going to hand over to our brother Tamra to finally close the session. Thank you.
Yes, Wadada. Oh, there's Wadada to come, isn't there? The saxophonist.
Oh, yeah, Wadada. Yes, is Wadada there? So we got carried away. Sorry, Wadada. So our brother Wadada is going to be playing the saxophone rendition of One Love by Bob Marley. Take it, our brother Wadada.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Blessed love. Blessed love.
Well,
Beautiful.
that was powerful, and I must say, very, very powerful, man.
Yes.
Very powerful story, very powerful. Boy. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Naturally powerful, you know.
Yeah, man. The things we go through, man. Yeah. Boy.
Yes. Well, I guess it's my turn to say something, and basically, I know it's my turn now to perform, to recite a poem. But before I recite this poem, I remember when I was in a crack house. I think it was the last Christmas I ever spent in a crack house. There was a man standing in the hallway, and he looked at me, and he said, "You're a messenger. You must go and deliver the message." And I said, "Yes, I will." And I remember in the crack house, I used to say, "I'm going to go back to the studio one day and record some songs and this and that." And it went on deaf ears. But I remember what Palmer said. Palmer said, "You're a messenger. Go and deliver the message." And so this is what I'm doing today by the grace of our Creator. And as we're wrapping things up now, before I go any further with the, before I say the poem, before I recite the poem, rather, I've got this to say, which is thank you to Sister Waletti and to Sister and Kandaki and to Brother Keith Davidson and to Brother Clive and Brother King Supreme and to everyone who have been interacting with us, whether or not they said anything or not. To all the viewers out there, thank you so much for your time. I hope you got something out of it. It's all about living and learning and helping each other and learning from each other's mistakes. I hope that someone here today has learned from my mistakes and carried through and shared with someone else. And so we end up going around the world like that. And yes, God bless you all. And we're coming out of the COVID-19 rehab soon. And let's come out better people than before the COVID incident occurred. And this final poem that I'm going to recite here today is entitled The Absence of Light. And it comes from my album, Ex-Gangster's Odyssey. Not Gangster's Odyssey, Ex-Gangster's Odyssey. And all proceeds from this album, which is in all musical platforms, you know, the proceeds thereof goes to our charity from Rehab to Life Foundation, steering our communities away from drug and alcohol addiction, violence, and crime by God's grace. I do believe we need some music to go with it, but I don't hear any music as yet. No music? As I slipped into the darkness at the dawn, in boxes only, by the riverbank. Yet somehow I never jumped in, although the voice from the water was enchantingly convincing. As trains came into the station, my back was glued to the wall, so I wouldn't fall or dive, thus keeping myself alive. I was hanging by a thread instead of a rope. My mortality clung to a glimmer of hope. I wasn't that innocent, having brutalized men and women for pride and money, let down God Almighty, myself, friends and family, and many members of society. Remorse, resentment, regret, guilt, shame, feelings and emotions that have no name. That which I could never ever explain. Accepting life on life's terms gave me the balance, it gave me the peace I needed for the power of love to be released. A self-centeredness gradually became deceased. Cleansed with confession and forgiveness, I was no more a prisoner of the past. Now became the only place to be. With the future always looking bright, now I know the darkness is always the absence of light. I repeat, now I know the darkness is always the absence of light. Love. Thank you, brother. That's brilliant. That's the way it was meant to be done, because there you go. But on the album, you can hear that poem to music, strings and this and that. But this was beautiful. This is, this is just spontaneous and off the cuff. And I hope that you all enjoyed it and got something from it, some kind of inspiration, some strength, some sort of understanding, some upliftment in some way. Some light in the darkness where you may be at the time. God bless you all. Blessed love.
God bless you.
And thank you also to our dear, beloved Yvonne Lawson. And we look forward to performing the Lord's work together.
Thank you. It's just been an honor being here.
The honor is all mine. And thank you, brother Omowale. Forgive me for not mentioning the rest of it. I don't remember it offhand. And he is the drum doctor. So if you need your drums repaired, call Omowale.
God bless you all.
God bless. Blessed love. Wow.
Wow.
Brother. Well, my dear lady.
Oh my goodness, no, you don't have to.
No, no way. It's all done already.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, this is my first time ever. I have so much nerves.
Well, to tell you the truth, this has been like trifold adversity because this wasn't working, that wasn't going.
Yes.
Started off late. I was struggling through there. I had the same poems